welcome in. This is Christy Hendricks with the Registered Nurse Innovators, Influencers, and Entrepreneurs, the RNiie Network. And I have a really special guest today who is in our member spotlight, and that's because she's such a successful nurse entrepreneur. We can learn so much from her. She started with writing a book and putting it up on Amazon, which is when I met her, and now she's just leading this incredible new business venture and has like a couple brands out there, and she's working wonders for nurses in business. I want to introduce Deanna Gillingham from the Case Management Study Guide, Case Management Institute and so come on in, Deanna.
Thank you. That was such a gracious welcome. Thank you.
So Deanna, okay, so we met some years ago, and at that time you were writing a case management study guide. And since then, I've seen you kind of catapult, and it's kind of, that business has really grown. I remember talking to you about your success with your study guide on Amazon, and now you've kind of got into so many different things with that, and we can talk about that a little bit. But then after that, I really want to talk about, what is case management and how do you become a case manager? So just give us kind of a brief rundown on that progression of starting with the study guide and where you are today.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you. We met when I was in the middle of writing a book, which took me a year to write, which was basically a study guide for case managers to pass a certification exam. And I think what's important for any entrepreneur to know, it was filling a need. It was one of those things where you were looking for something and you're like, why isn't this here? Why can't I find this? And you know how we always throughout our lives say, I wish somebody would invent this, or I should go and do this. For the first time in my life, I decided, you know what, I'm going to do it. So I went ahead and I created the study guide. And I was talking with Christy and some other entrepreneurs, and I have to tell you, the one thing that is really, really important is finding supportive people to help you, and which is where RNiie and a community comes in. Because without that, at least for me, this was not something that was normal. I knew nobody else that was doing something like this. Nurses don't do that. They go to work, they come home, they don't do entrepreneur type things. And my family was not the entrepreneur type family. None of our friends were entrepreneurs. So it was really important for me to meet up with some people every week who were doing the same thing so that you can feel normal and like, yes, this is something, and yes, you need to keep doing it, because there are times when you're like, well, I could take the kids to the movies, or I could send them to the movies and I could sit home and write. Mm-hmm. And without that supportive network of people saying, yes, this is worth it, it's worth giving up these things. So Christy had played a very important part in encouraging me and was very helpful to me along the way, and kept giving me that, yes, keep doing it. It's going to be, it's going to be okay. It's going to pay off. So that's kind of where everything started and where we met. It's grown now to beyond a book. We started with a book. The book was successful. We moved into a course. From the course, we started a Facebook group, a community, which we now have over 8,500 members in our community, and it's a supportive network. And then from there, we're growing into, we saw a need, again, finding those needs. And I think it's like another thing that's important for entrepreneurs to know is you don't have to have the whole big picture. You just kind of need to know like that next step. Like, what do you feel like you need to fill this need? I never would have guessed when I was writing that book that I'd be doing the things that I'm doing now. That was just never even anywhere in the imagination. But as you go through this one door, then you see what the next door is, and you see that you need to go through that door, and then it's like, okay, now you see the next door, and you meet people, and you make acquaintances, and all these opportunities come open to you. So I hope that I was able to explain kind of in the short version of how we got from there to here.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up too, where you don't see the long range picture, because when you're first starting out, you have no idea what you're going to be doing 2 years from now. Of course, you've got your goals and you're setting goals along the way, but opportunities come up all the time and you think, wow, I didn't think of this. Well, because circumstances change, the people, and then you meet different people, and then you find out more needs, and it kind of takes you sometimes surprisingly in a direction that you hadn't anticipated. And that's okay. That's perfectly okay, and it could lead to good things. Actually, I think it's a great thing how it works out that way, because you adjust along the way to meet the needs of your audience.
Yes.
So,
and that's really important. So you're feeling the needs, you're finding you're getting feedback from your audience, and they're taking you down a different direction. And another, for me at least, another good point about that was, if I would have seen all of this before, I would have been too scared. There's no way that I would have, I can't do that. I can't get to there. But when you just have to take the next step, and then the next step, and the next step, it's not so overwhelming. It's like, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? And how do you start a big, thriving business one step at a time? And you can't compare yourself and where you're at on day 5 with where somebody else is at in year 5. You have to kind of just do that little bit every day to get yourself closer to where you want to be. But looking at that big picture, sometimes it can be a little overwhelming. So it's kind of nice just seeing, going through one room, and then you see another door. It's like, okay, now I have to go through that door. Then you see another, and you just keep advancing. And before you know it, you look back and you see how far you've come. And then you get to talk to your friends who've been with you the whole way, and you realize, wow, this is really great. Look how far we've come, like Christy and I just did.
Look how far we've come, and those doors do just keep opening. So you just keep walking through those doors, and it's really fun. It's exciting. I mean, I love being a nurse in business. It's so many opportunities, and it's just such a different vantage point than what we're used to seeing in clinical practice or in traditional nursing practice. So let's kind of talk about that a little bit. First, so if you can tell me, what is case management for anybody here that doesn't know what case management is, or needs maybe a more kind of drilled down definition of case management?
Yeah, and I have to be honest with you, even when I was working as a case manager, for about the first 6 months, when people would ask me, well, what do you do? I had no idea what to tell them. I really didn't. And then I found this definition, and oh, that's what we do. So I'm going to read you this definition because I think it really clearly states what we do. And it's really simple. I should memorize it, but I haven't. Case managers help people get the healthcare and other community services that they need when they need them and for the best value. So to summarize it, that's really what we do. I mean, there's a nice long definition we can look at also, but that's what we just help our patients to get the healthcare services and support that they need when they need it, and in a way that they can afford it.
Okay, I like that definition because it's just kind of plain, simple, layman's terms, nothing crazy. Okay, so what kind of person would be really good at case management?
Well, to be a good case manager, you have to have experience in healthcare. So you have to have worked, most people would agree, 5 years as a nurse, as a social worker, as a physical therapist, doing something in the medical profession, because you really have to have a really good understanding of how the whole overall healthcare system works. It's not important to just understand about diabetes or about, recovering from a certain illness. You have to really understand how people go from acute inpatient to a SNF to home care, community resources that are available, the transitioning from specialists, what gaps there might be, why people are not compliant with their health care, because a lot of times we think, you hear non-compliant like it's a bad thing. A lot of times they just don't understand. They're overwhelmed. So when you had a lot of experiences and you can see, well, this happens a lot where we've seen this patient in here 3 times because they couldn't get their prescription filled. And every time they run out of their blood pressure medication and they come back in here with a hypertensive crisis when they go to the doctor's office and he says, oh, your blood pressure is high, we need to put you back in the hospital. So you can see how these things work and get the overall picture, and you can figure out where the holes are. And what a case manager does is she takes those holes and she tries to fill them. She tries to figure out, how can we help this patient to make sure that they can get their medications? Maybe we have to find a pharmacy that delivers in their area that we can refer them to so that they make sure that they get their medications on time. So I like to call it MacGyvering, where the case managers, they have these resources that don't always meet the needs of the patient. And then they have the patient who has these needs, and they have to kind of piecework things together to make them work and find other resources that are out there and just make things work.
And, that makes me think, too, it sounds like a case manager needs to also be really tuned into what the resources are out in the community.
Yes. Yes. And that's one of the, I think, the hardest things, because it's a lot of social work and nursing combined. Mm-hmm. And so you have to be able to assess for the needs, but then you have to know what community resources are out there in your community so that you can actually help these people to not just make a referral to a doctor's office. And yes, you're going to see Dr. So-and-so for follow-up, but how are you going to get to that doctor's appointment? Mm-hmm. If you broke your leg and you're not allowed to drive for 6 weeks, and telling the patient that they have discharge instructions that include following up with your doctor in 2 weeks, if they can't drive, how are they going to get to that appointment? Mm-hmm. So you have to, kind of be able to anticipate these problems, and then are there resources out there? Some communities have transportation for people who need to get to doctor's appointments, so you have to know what those are and how to qualify the patient for them, and then how to get them those services.
I remember back when I was working in the NICU, and one of the nurses who was a staff nurse there in the NICU with me, she sort of suddenly started coming into the NICU just in kind of street clothes and during the day, and I'm like, Tiffany, what are you doing now? What is this? And she said that she was doing case management. Like, well, how did that happen? Because she was just a bedside nurse, with us. And I thought that case managers, that you had to be invited somehow to be a case manager. I had no idea that there was actually a process that you could go through so that you could become a case manager. I thought it was sort of this elite. Did you really? Okay, well, I'm glad I'm not the only one. So, I thought it was like this elite group up there, which you guys are elite, but that you had to be invited into the club, to do it.
Yeah, so, it was an invitation-only club, right. Secret society, yes.
The secret society of case managers. So where do case managers work? I mean, are they only in the hospital, or where else do they work?
Case managers work in a lot of places. They can work in acute care, like the hospitals, like long-term acute care hospitals, rehabilitation hospitals. They can also work for insurance companies, which a lot of case managers like, because that gets them out of the hospital environment and into more of an office environment. So you have more regular hours. You're not doing the shifts and the holidays and those types of things. They workers' compensation. There's a lot of case managers on workers' compensation. And again, that gives you the better work environment as far as hours worked. You're not working night shift if you're doing workers' compensation. You're not pulling different shifts, so that's nice.
Wait, case managers have to work nights?
Depending on where you work, so mostly no, but some big, large hospitals will have one case manager or two case managers, depending on the size of the hospital, that'll cover nights, especially for like the ER. So a lot of times ER case managers will work nights because, ERs are pretty busy at night, and that's when you get people that come in that maybe really need some services because they're coming in the middle of the night and don't have a way home, and they're not, there's not a lot of options out there in the middle of the night when you're discharging a patient home. So so not, the majority do not work, but yes, some do. And there's just case management companies out there that they hire case managers, that these case managers will work for insurance companies or doctor's offices or things like dialysis centers, oncology centers, and they'll case manage the patients for them. So it's actually a case management company. You work for the company, then the company has contracts with different organizations that you would do case management for. They can also work for home care. So a lot of people don't realize that when you work as a home health nurse or a home hospice nurse, you're actually doing case management 9 times out of 10. Those nurses are case managers because the patient isn't going to the doctor as much. So the nurse is managing any DME needs that the patient has. They're managing medications. They're managing doctors and specialists and outpatient treatments and all of those things. So a lot of times those are case managers also.
Wow. Okay. I'm learning so much about case management that it's quite an education for me. It actually sounds like just a natural segue, from clinical nursing if you want to go into this to this area of nursing. Okay, so what are the benefits to working as a case manager? I mean, besides what you talked about already, and or maybe you can talk a little bit more about the different companies or organizations or entities that you can work for, the different shifts that you may be able to work, but are there any other benefits to working as a case manager?
Yeah, I mean, for one thing, it normally is less physically demanding. And I say normally because if you're working in a hospital still and you have to run from floor to floor and chase down doctors, then you're going to be, but you're not picking up patients because you're not doing patient care. So you're not turning, lifting, and those types of things. And the hardest part for me when I went to work for an insurance company was sitting. I could not sit because I was used to walking 20,000 steps a day. And now I was walking 0. And so I would actually, like, my boss would laugh because she'd say, yeah, all the new people always do that, because like every hour I was getting up and just walking up and down the hallway and then going and sitting back down. And she would laugh at me because she's like, yeah, the new people always do that. You're not used to sitting, are you? So it is definitely less physically demanding, which is great because, you know, case management is, like you said, it's like a natural progression. Once you get all this experience and you need to take it somewhere. If you don't want to go into management and you don't want to go into education, like maybe getting your doctorate and teaching in a college, this is a really good way to be able to use all that knowledge that you have and all those skills and experience in a way that really can really impact the clients that you have. So it is less physically demanding. Some people, not everybody, but some people have the ability to work from home as a case manager. That's one of the things that I did. I eventually was able to work from home, and that was something that I had always wanted to do. I didn't know nurses could work from home. I was just blown away. It's like, you mean you can work from home as a nurse? I was so narrow-minded that I thought that nurses had to work at a hospital or a doctor's office. And maybe the really lucky ones worked for a school district and had summers off, but they didn't get paid much, so I wasn't going to do that. That was like that was my extent of nursing. And I have learned that case management is a wonderful option because you do have the ability to work from home, but you also have the ability to start your own case management business. So there are case managers out there that start their own case management business and work as case managers either independently or they hire other case managers to work with them. And so, again, you know, it may be hard to start your own nursing practice business, but starting your own case management business is a very viable option for somebody who is an experienced nurse and has the qualities and the knowledge behind them on how to run a case management company.
So would that nurse contract with medical groups or doctor's offices, or how would she get business?
Yeah, a lot of different ways. Some people will do workers' compensation, so they'll open their own business and they'll contract with different companies and do the workers' compensation case management for them. Some will do independent practice where they'll just hang up a shingle. And for example, my other half has a son who has a disability, and we are looking for a case manager to come in and make sure that he has the resources he needs, that he can continue to live independently as long as possible. People will do that for their elderly parents too. They'll get a case manager and say, you know, mom's had a couple falls lately, dad's forgetting to take his medications. We need to figure out what can we do. Do they need to go into an assisted living, or how can we help them to live at home longer? So the case manager may come in there and help them to figure out, we can put these resources in so that they can stay at home. Just so many different ways that it can be done that it's based. I know somebody who went into a doctor's office, and they go into doctor's offices and they help them to set up their practice to accept workers' compensation patients in a way that allows them to make a lot more money, because the case manager comes in, streamlines everything, and she set up the systems and processes to get everything working smoothly. So she kind of more or less consults. So there's so many different ways that can be done.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's interesting. Let me ask you another question then too that just came to mind is, does a case manager have to know a lot about insurance?
It sure does help.
Because I mean, some are going to pay for things, and others insurance companies, you need to know what your client's insurance company is actually going to cover before you just go running out and getting that service for them.
Right. You have to have a really good understanding of insurance principles, and that's because you want to make sure that you're maximizing the benefit for your clients, no matter where you're working. You want to make sure that you're giving the client the best, now that's not saying that the insurance will cover everything, but you want to make sure that you're getting everything you can from that insurance, and then if they need to pay out of pocket for something, that you're helping them to get the best deal on that also. So yes, understanding insurance principles, how that works, co-pays, deductibles, out-of-pocket expenses, insurance contracts, how to possibly get around by doing something that they call a cost-benefit analysis, where you can show that there's actually a benefit for going out of contract as a cost savings for the insurance company. So yeah, there's a lot of things that it helps to know. And those are not things that most nurses learn about on the floor. No matter how much experience you have, those are not things that you just know about.
Okay, I want to go into that a little bit deeper, but first I want to ask you, what is this, I mean, I don't know when case management kind of started, but is it a good, you know, we as nurses, we kind of like some security. Is it a good time to go into case management, or,
That's a great question, actually. This is probably the best time to get into case management. And I can kind of talk a little bit about my business with that, too. I kind of got into case management right at the, you know, we always look for that hockey stick.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started to research, when I got into case management and started to look into, would I be able to make a business out of this book that I was writing? There weren't a lot of case managers out there. And I was like, well, this is going to just be something that is a passion project for me. It's not going to really be something that I can retire. It'll be a side hustle. But then all of a sudden, things went on the upswing. And there are several reasons for that. Case management's been around for about 25 years. Case Management Society of America, the exam, the certification exam has about 25 years now. So it's been around as an established specialty or practice for quite a while. On top of that, we have a growing and aging population. So we have a sicker population. We're keeping people alive a lot longer. They're wanting to stay independent a lot longer. So we have these people are getting sicker because they're living so long. And on top of that, you have a change in the way that we are getting reimbursed for how insurance companies and Medicare are reimbursing people or hospitals or providers. One of the things that they're doing is they're doing what they call value-based care. So it's no longer fee-for-service, which means you go to the doctor says, okay, I charge $20 for this, and then you're out the door. You go to the hospital, and the hospital says, we charge this much for this surgery, and then you pay it, you're out the door. Now it's value-based, which Medicare is changing the way that they're paying hospitals based on the value that they bring, which means if you come back and you have a readmission within 30 days, if that hospital has too many of those, they're lowering the payment that they're making to that hospital. Now the hospital is saying, how can we keep people from readmitting within 30 days?
Right.
And case management is how they do that. The case manager is calling and making sure that they have transportation to their doctor's appointment, making sure that they got their medications filled. They're doing all these things to prevent these readmissions. They're making sure that if they need home health, that they have home health. So the value-based care is really helping case managers because now there's a higher demand for case managers. The problem is there's a very big growing demand for case managers, but case managers are also aging. And I have a statistic I would love to share with you here because I think this is really quite interesting. Only 2% of board-certified case managers are under the age of 35. The median age is between 55 and 59, and that is well above the median age for the average U.S. labor workforce. The average U.S. labor workforce, the age is 42. So case managers are 55 to 59, so they're retiring. The majority of case managers are ready to retire, just when the need for case managers is growing. Okay. So this is a great time to get into the case management.
Good time to get into case management. Yeah. Okay. Well, hey, I don't know. Maybe I'll go into case management. It sounds pretty good to me. Let me just be a little devil's advocate here just for a second because, you know, and most of my followers or many of my followers know that I come from a NICU and a pediatric background, primarily NICU. And so when people talk about case management, they often talk about SNFs and rehab and all, you know, all that kind of stuff that makes it sound like case management is only for the adult population. I wonder if you can speak to the neonatal or pediatric population and the needs for case management there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really great point. There are case managers in a lot of different specialties. Behavioral health, there are behavioral health case managers. There are OB case managers. So high-risk patients, insurance companies will pay case managers to call these patients, make sure that, you know, if a mom needs, if a mom needs to be on bed rest and she has a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old running around the house, how much bed rest is she getting? So I know when I worked in OB, there were times when the doctor would put her in the hospital because that was the only way he knew she was going to get bed rest. But what if there was a case manager at the insurance company and said, okay, it's going to cost you X amount of dollars to have this patient in the hospital on bed rest.
Right. And they're not going to pay for that. Yeah, they're not going to do that.
Yeah. But that's where you can do some kind of finagling, and you can say, even though we don't have a benefit for something like a home health aide that may watch the children or help with the children, there have been some cases where we have been able to get childcare covered because it was a cost savings over keeping that patient in the hospital. As long as the patient had a valid reason to be in the hospital, and it was going to cost this much money because we were preventing a preterm labor, we were preventing a NICU stay. So the cost savings, if you have a $100,000 hospital bill, or you say, or we can pay, $100 a day to keep this patient at home, what would the insurance company rather pay? Right. So it's not always something that they're willing to do, but again, that gets into all the different types of insurance, and one of the types of insurance is called a self-funded plan, which means the company that the patient works for, they have their own bucket of money that they're paying out of. And if you can say, hey, we're going to save you this amount of money if we do this, there are times when they will actually do things like that. So that's where the case managers have to get really creative and say, it's going to cost you for a NICU baby this many days, and if we can't get her to deliver at term, and plus, or we can pay for her to stay in the hospital at X amount of dollars per day. We're actually going to save you tens of thousands of dollars by covering something that you normally wouldn't cover.
Okay, now this makes me think back to my own high-risk pregnancy, where I had already delivered a 31-weeker, and then my second pregnancy, I went into preterm labor at 18 weeks, a week after we moved into a new home, in a new community, and we were the first ones there. No one else lived on that street. We knew no one. And I had to somehow get my first grader to school. I had to somehow get grocery shopping done and meals cooked, and nobody ever suggested at that point, well, we have a case manager to help you with that. I had to somehow calling church. I didn't even know this church. I was brand new there, and I knew nobody in that area. So how would a patient even know? I mean, we know these things because we're nurses, right? But as somebody who's not a nurse, she's a teacher, she's a, whatever she is, and here she is on preterm labor, or whatever, or bed rest for, whatever, hyperemesis, whatever. How does she become aware of those services that might be available? I mean, I would think that it's up to really her doctor's office. There's a lot, and that goes into a totally different thing that we teach about. There are different ways that you can be flagged. The insurance company would be flagged saying, oh, this is a high risk, we need to get case management involved. Sometimes it is the doctor's office that will make a referral and say, we need to figure something out. Sometimes it's just a code that comes across, maybe when the coding system that the doctor uses, instead of using a normal visit, he uses a different code for a different type of visit, which would mean, okay, this flagged it in the computer system, now instead of human eyes need to look at it. So the case manager would look at it and say, is this somebody who could benefit from case management services? And then would call the patient and say, okay, we noticed this. And then ask them some questions to find out if there was something that they could help them with. Okay, thanks for answering that question. That helps a lot. I wish I had it, but that was 24 years ago, so we won't, water under the bridge. But it does make me think, you may be a wonderful nurse, a great clinical nurse and stuff, but it's still, there's a lot that you have to learn to be able to function as a case manager, because your patient depends on you. So how does somebody get into case management? How do they learn all these things that, things like insurance and all that kind of stuff? Maybe they have a specialty in ortho, right? And they want to be a case manager, but how do they learn how to be a case manager?
Yeah, that is a great question. And that is a question that a lot of people have been asking us. And up until up until earlier this year, the answer was you get the job and you get on-the-job training. And it's very, we have a Facebook group with over 8,500 people in it. And that was one of the questions we asked was, what was your experience in learning about case management? And everybody said it was awful, trial by fire. I hated it. I wanted to quit for the first 3 months. I didn't know what I was doing. And again, as a problem solver, I did not like hearing that because I love case management. You know, when you look at that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we're all nurses, so we remember that. And that self-actualization, when you get up to the top of that, where you're like, okay, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing and I'm making a difference in this world. Mm-hmm. That's what case management did for me. More than any other job in nursing, I finally got to see a big picture and make a big difference, not just in their hospital care while they were in the hospital, but I got to follow these people through to get them back to normal or to help them to learn their new normal mm-hmm. and get them to their higher self-actualization of what they're, where they were supposed to be. So to me, this was just such a great thing. And I hated to hear that people were getting thrown in trial by fire and that they were not liking it, but they stuck with it and they finally loved it. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that, when you were asking me before about case management as a good to get into, one of the things that we have found, we did a salary and trend survey, 92% of the case managers, and we had over 1,000 case managers that responded to our survey. Over 92% of them were happy with their role as a case manager. And they are glad that they chose case management. And that I know in nursing, it's not always like that. I see people complaining all the time about, they love being a nurse, but they hate their job and they don't, they wish they would have never got into it or they're looking to change into something else. And so to me, that's very satisfying that people, if you can get the right people into case management, teach them how to do it well, they're going to have a job and a career that are very satisfied. So we actually, in January of this year, we started, it took me a year to create this, but we have a Foundations of Case Management course. So all those things that you were talking about that we don't learn as a bedside nurse, like insurance contracts, insurance principles, mm-hmm. The things I was talking about, like value-based care, all those things we teach. And that's just one of our 11 modules is just on insurance. We teach about.
So I was just going to say, tell me your other modules. What else do you teach?
Yeah, we teach on the ethics of case management and because that's case management is one of those things where you are really getting into people's lives when they are at their worst. There is just a lot of stuff going on. So there's ethical dilemmas that come up because you have people that maybe the family member, like we talked before, the son says, hey, my mom's home alone. We live in Los Angeles. She's in New York. We need case management in there. And they're saying, we want her in a nursing home. And she's saying, I want to stay at home. Well, you have two masters, dual masters. So that's an ethical dilemma because you have a mom who's saying, no, I want to stay home. But you have a son who's paying you. They're both your clients. So we go into ethical situations like that. Mm-hmm. There's a standards of practice, and we teach on the standards of practice of case management so that you understand what you're doing. We teach in a lot more depth what case management is in different areas that case managers work. We also, case management is not utilization review. I want to make that clear, but in some instances, case managers need to understand utilization review, and depending on where they work, like if they work for the insurance company, they may do utilization review on their clients as well as case management. Mm-hmm. So we've actually partnered with MCG, which is a tool that is used to determine, let's say, do they meet the qualifications for inpatient stay? Do they meet the qualifications for home care? So it's an online tool, and it's a very robust tool, but you have to learn how to use it. And a lot of insurance companies and some hospitals won't hire a case manager. They want them to have experience with MCG, where you can't get experience with MCG unless you've worked as a case manager. So it's that catch-22. Mm-hmm. So we have made, we've partnered with MCG, and we are the first people that they're doing this with. So we're really excited. We're the only ones. And they're letting us use MCG as a hands-on tool. So we're actually training our people that go through our course on how to use MCG, and then letting them go in there and practice. We're giving them case scenarios where they go in there and actually get hands-on experience using that. So we're covering we're covering a lot of different things: communication, negotiation techniques. We're covering reimbursements we talked about. And then just the principles of case management practice. It's a little bit different than the nursing process. There's a case management process, mm-hmm. which is slightly different from the nursing process, and we teach that so that the case manager, our goal is when they get out there, they're ready for their entry-level position job as a case manager, that they have the knowledge behind them, they have the verbiage behind them, and they can learn about the policies and procedures of the organization they're going to be working for, but they don't have to learn what case management is as well as that. They already know what case management is and how to be a case manager.
Okay, so that is a really good rundown of the, really important things that need to be touched on, need to be, that you need to educate yourself on or be educated on if you want to go into case management. Now, I noticed several times you said we. Can you define who is we? Who are you, Deanna? and who is this
okay, well, this started off,
case managers?
Yes. This started off as me when Christy and I first met, and it has grown. I have a business partner, Abby Carmen, and he handles all things business because as a nurse, I don't know that much about running a business. I'm trying to learn, and I've joined groups like RNiie, which are great to help you learn all these types of things. Highly recommend it. You need to learn business. You just do. If you want to run a successful business, you need to know how to advertise. You need to know how to market yourself. You need to know how to, you need a website. These days, you can't have a business without a website. You just can't. And you don't grow it on somebody else's platform like Facebook and say that you have a business. Because you know what? Facebook could close down tomorrow and you just lost your business. So you need to learn these things, which is why RNiie is such a great place to learn all of these principles. I also have a lot of case managers. Like I said, when I started this, I worked for an organization as a case manager. One organization, I knew the people in my organization. I have since partnered with industry leaders. I just never would have expected that I would be partnering with the people that I'm partnering with now 5 years ago. As we talk about, you just have to take that next step because you never know. Anne Llewellyn, who is a member of the community, she has been like my fairy godmother. She really has. She's introduced me to so many people. She has helped me, she's guided me, she's just been a mentor to me, and that has just, it's blessing beyond what I could ever explain, just meeting her. She's introduced me to so many other people. And then, attending industry events and going out there and being uncomfortable. So I have Anne, I have several instructors now that we have courses, and so we have several instructors. I think we're up to 6 instructors now that we have. And so it's not just me. I have a team behind me. I also have an executive assistant, Rachel, and I have an assistant in the Philippines, Abigail. So it's now a team. It's no longer me.
Well, okay. So now tell us what the name of your school and how people can get in touch with you or how they can find you.
Okay. This would probably be another very short story. So when Christy and I met, I started off with the stay-at-home nurse. That was my business. And because that's where my focus, I thought, was going to be helping nurses to become case managers and stay at home, get their certifications, they can get a good job, and they can work from home. As things developed, we realized that name no longer, that brand and that name no longer fit where we were going. And so we have rebranded last year to the Case Management Institute. So if you go to the website, casemanagementinstitute.com, whether you're a case manager who is looking to get certified or to go on our case manager cruise or to just learn more about being a better case manager, maybe going into maybe you're working in a hospital and you want to get into an insurance company or vice versa, or maybe you want to start working in workers' comp, we can help you with that. If you're a nurse and you're interested in getting into case management, you can also go to casemanagementinstitute.com and you'll see where we can help you to actually become a case manager. And we have a course out. It's called The Foundations of Case Management. And so we're going to teach you the foundations of case management so that you can go out there, get your first job as a case manager, and then grow and expand and help all those people that are out there waiting for you to help them.
Wow. You have grown your business to, heights that I never imagined. And to heights that you even, never imagined. And that just really kind of harkens back to what we were talking about earlier about kind of following those doors that keep opening. And certainly you've been able to, you walked right through those doors. You don't always know really where it's going to end, but you've taken up the right opportunities and found a way to deliver exactly what your audience needs. And I think it's admirable, and I think it was so needed because, yeah, for a long time there, nurses were kind of winging it, trying to figure out how to manage a case. But now you've put it all into this really nice, easy package to follow, and to learn from the very fundamentals of case management. What is case management? What does a case manager do? And then to take that person, that nurse, all the way through the process, through insurance and all those other things, to really help the profession create more effective case managers.
Right. And and part of it's a little bit selfish. I mean, we're getting older, and our parents are getting older, and I think if all the case managers retire, and I've seen it where a company has said we need 50 case managers, and they just take 50 nurses and they push them into case management, and they don't train them because all of a sudden we just need you working as quick as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Those, not because the nurses don't want to, but because they don't know what case management even is. They're just told, put out this fire, put out this fire, put out this fire, and the patients are suffering. And someday those patients are going to be us or our parents. So I feel like I have an obligation to make sure that there is an opportunity for every person working as a case manager to know what their job is and how they should be doing their job, what the expectations are, and making sure that that client, that patient, is cared for in the best way possible. And every nurse wants to do that. We all want to take really good care of our patients. It's just nobody has told us when you become a case manager, nobody tells you how. It's like, okay, this is how you get on the computer and log on. This is how you make your phone call using our phone system. They're teaching you all those things, but they're not telling you the why behind it. What is the philosophy of case management? I didn't know that for about the first 3 years that I did case management.
You're just too busy putting out fires, right?
Exactly.
Okay, well, I think that was a great interview. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for taking the time with me.
Well, it's my pleasure. It's always my pleasure talking to you, Deanna. So for one last time, just for our viewers, tell them how they can find your school, the Case Management Institute, and how they can get in touch with you.
Yes. If you go to casemanagementinstitute.com, you'll find all of our resources on there. There's also a contact us page, and there's also a place where you can sign up for our emails to get more information about us. You can always reach out to me. We have the Stay-at-Home Nurse. We just have the Stay-at-Home Nurse Facebook page. And that's just because I can't get rid of it. I love it. It's my baby. And then we have a group called Case Managers Community. We do ask some questions on there. The first question is, are you a case manager? Even if you're not a case manager, but you're interested in becoming a case manager, you can put no. And then the next question is, why do you want to join our group? You can say, because I'm interested in becoming a case manager. We are very particular. Even though we have 8,500 members in there, we're very particular about people spamming the group. So we don't let people in there because, you get these people that are like, oh, yes, I'm an Army general.
Right.
And
I love my family. I love God and my country. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And then they want to sell you something or marry you or whatever. So,
exactly.
Yes, we're very good. So you need to answer the questions, and we would love to see you in our community.
Okay, and that is your Facebook group. And tell us again, what is it called?
Case Managers Community.
Case Managers Community Facebook group.
Yes.
Deanna. You'll find her.
Yes.
You'll find her there. Okay, well, Deanna, thank you so much for spending some time with us. I really appreciate it. I will have all these links in the show notes, so just take a look down below, and you'll find out how to get in touch with Deanna. If case management is something that you're looking at, I think it's an amazing avenue for nurses who kind of have that bent. Wonderful way to practice independently if that's what you're looking for. Wonderful opportunity if, say, you find yourself not able to practice clinically or in a position where you can't run up and down the halls. So, take a look at that opportunity, and Deanna's got all the information for you. Again, this is Christy Hendricks with the RNiie Network. That is the Registered Nurse Innovators, Influencers, and Entrepreneurs Network. Until the next time, thanks for being with us. Bye.